From Macbeth, you can read the character of Macbeth or Macbeth as a tragic hero. Aristotle, in his Poetics, defines a tragic hero as a character of noble stature and virtue who is not wholly good or evil, but whose downfall is brought about by a hamartia or a tragic flaw and by fate. The tragic hero's misfortune is not wholly deserved, and their fall evokes pity and fear in the audience, leading to catharsis. Aristotle writes, "A man who is not eminently good and just yet whose misfortune is brought about not by vice or depravity, but by some error or frailty." The tragic hero must be of high status, possess a tragic flaw, experience a reversal of fortune, and recognize their errors. But this recognition comes too late to avert disaster. At the play's outset, Macbeth is presented as a noble and valiant warrior, highly esteemed by King Duncan and his peers. He is the Thane of Glamis and later the Thane of Cawdor, rewarded for his bravery in battle. For brave Macbeth, well, he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution. These establishes Macbeth's high status, fulfilling Aristotle's first criteria for a tragic hero. Macbeth's tragic flaw is his vaulting ambition, which is ignited by the witch's prophecies and further fueled by Lady Macbeth's manipulation. He is not innately evil, but his desire for power overcomes his moral scruples. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which overleaps itself and falls on the other. Initially, Macbeth hesitates to murder Duncan, showing a conscience and awareness of right and wrong. However, Lady Macbeth questions his manhood and resolve, pushing him toward regicide. "When you durst do it, then you were a man." This marks the beginning of his moral descent as he chooses ambition over virtue. After Duncan's murder, Macbeth's fortune reverses. He is crowned king, but his reign is plagued by paranoia and insecurity. To secure his throne, he orders the murders of Banquo and Macduff's family, becoming increasingly ruthless and isolated. His actions estrange him from Lady Macbeth and the nobility, and he becomes a tyrant, bloody scapegoat. The witch's prophecy, which once inspired hope, now entrap him in a false sense of security, leading to his downfall. Macbeth is a quintessential Aristotelian tragic hero, noble by birth, admirable in many ways, but fatally flawed by ambition. His downfall is precipitated by his own actions, manipulated by external forces, and recognized only when it is too late. Shakespeare crafts a character whose tragedy lies not in villainy but in the ruin of great man by his own hand. Then we have the significance of the Potter scene in William Shakespeare's Macbeth. Macbeth is one of William Shakespeare's most renowned tragedies. It explores the destructive psychological and political consequences of unchecked ambition as it follows the rise and fall of the Scottish general Macbeth. Spurred by the prophecies of three witches and the manipulation of his wife, Macbeth murders King Duncan to seize the throne, only to spiral into paranoia, tyranny, and madness. Marked by its dark atmosphere, supernatural elements, and profound exploration of guilt, fate, and the nature of evil. The Potter appears in Act 2, Scene 3 immediately after the intense and harrowing murder of King Duncan. His primary function is to provide comic relief, easing the overwhelming tension for the audience before the horror of the murder is discovered. Shakespeare often uses such moments of levity in his tragedies to balance emotional intensity. Beyond humor, the Potter scene has deep thematic resonance. The Potter imagines himself as the gatekeeper of Hellgate, drawing a parallel between Macbeth's castle and the hell itself. This not only establishes the castle as a site of damnation following Duncan's murder, but also foreshadows the moral and spiritual descent of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. The Potter's references to sin and equivocation echo the play's motifs of deception and moral ambiguity. So then you can just go through the whole notes. It's a very important question. Then you have the importance of sleepwalking scene in Macbeth. The sleepwalking scene in Shakespeare's Macbeth Act 5 Scene 1 stands as one of the most dramatic and psychologically profound moments in the entire play. This scene, featuring Lady Macbeth's nocturnal wanderings reveals the devastating effects of guilt, serves as a climatic unraveling of her character, and provides a powerful commentary on the consequences of unchecked ambition and moral transgression. Earlier in the play, Lady Macbeth is the chief architect of Duncan's murder, pushing Macbeth and suppressing her own conscience for the sake of power. However, after the murder, she increasingly becomes consumed by psychological torment. By Act 5, Macbeth is embroiled in violent paranoia while Lady Macbeth's mind succumbs to guilt and mental collapse. The scene opens in Dunsinane Castle where a doctor and Lady Macbeth's gentlewoman are discussing the Queen's strange behaviors. I have 2 nights watched with you, but can perceive no truth in your report. What was it she last walked? Why it stood by her? She has lied by her continually. Lady Macbeth, formerly fearless, now demands a light be by her at all times, a symbolic rejection of the darkness in which she once clocked her deeds. The observer's hushed conversation established a tone of mystery and impending tragedy. Then we have the role of Lady Macbeth in the downfall of Macbeth. When Macbeth hesitates to murder King Duncan, she challenges his masculinity and manipulates him with sharp psychological tactics, pushing him to seize power at any moral cost. Then we have the role of supernatural elements in Macbeth. From the very first scene, the play immerses the audience in a world tinged with supernatural. The three witches or weird sisters open the play with their airy chant, "Fear is foul and foul is fear, hover through the fog and fill the air." This paradoxical line establishes the play's theme of appearance versus reality and introduces supernaturalism as a disruptive force that subverts the natural order. The witches' prophecies ignite Macbeth's ambition and set the tragic events in motion. The witches serve as harbingers of doom and agents of fate. Their prediction to Macbeth, "All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis, all hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor, all hail Macbeth, thou shalt be king thereafter." It plants the seed of kingship in Macbeth's mind. Their cryptic prophecies manipulate Macbeth by exploiting his latent ambition and moral weakness. Though the witches do not directly command Macbeth to commit a murder, their words and airy presence function as a metaphysical temptation, what Macbeth himself calls instruments of darkness. They embody the dark forces that catalyze his downfall. Comment on the significance of the banquet scene in Macbeth. The banquet scene in Macbeth Act 3 Scene 4 is a crucial turning point in both the play's plot and Macbeth's psychological state. This scene shifts the tone from Macbeth's external consolidation of power to the internal unraveling of his mind. The dramatic appearance of Banquo's ghost during the royal banquet publicly exposes Macbeth's guilt and paranoia, signaling the beginning of his moral and psychological downfall. Again, a very important one.